You've got mail.
So we're back.
We are.
Les Kevin, more tech from UTech IT, right?
UTechIT.com. Check us out.
So today I want to talk about some leadership, but before we get into that, going down memory lane, did you ever have a teacher that made a big impact on your life?
Very much so.
And
Yep.
you always remember those, right?
Absolutely.
But even fewer and far between is when you get a principal that really makes an impact on your life, right?
Yeah, because going to the principal's office was never a good thing.
We tried to avoid that like the
Right.
plague, didn't we?
Right.
And we weren't so lucky sometimes, were we?
History shows.
Well, today we get to introduce a guest, and he's a rock star. He's everything that makes Brighton High School go.
Fantastic.
And that is Gavin Johnson, principal of Brighton High School. It's been there for forever, right, Gavin?
Feels like forever. It does. But 12 years so far.
I was going to say the last few years, it seems like we're counting by 3 or 4 at times, right?
I've been saying the last 2 years count as double years, but not towards my retirement, unfortunately.
Yeah, we need to work on the pension board with that, right? We should get double credit for that. So, anyways, Gavin Johnson, principal Brighton High School.
Yeah, great to meet you.
Thank you, guys.
Welcome.
My pleasure.
I've been an admirer from afar. We've had a couple kids go through already, in full disclosure. I've got one more there. And she was nervous as heck today that I had the principal in here. And she says, Dad, don't screw this up, all right?
Don't make it any harder on me, right?
That's right. That's right. But no, the high school over there has been rocking. And watching from what's going on, the students, the staff, you got parents, we got board of education. I mean, the whole community, there's a big focus on the high school, and everybody knows what happens over there, and they know if it's well run, and they know if there's stuff that we need to improve on. And I think everybody in the community would say we're proud to be Brighton Bulldogs, and we have a great leader over there. And I'm always amazed how you could take all those different folks, Gavin, and have that thing so well aligned and so well run. And I think it's leadership. So what is leadership?
Well, leadership to me is a little different. I've had a lot of leadership courses. I went to college and learned about leadership philosophy. And those things don't tell me what to do every day. I think leadership is modeling, showing up early, being the first person in the door, work ethic, modeling what you expect from people, picking up the garbage in the hallway, hugging a kid, being an educator, and not being a disciplinarian. Principals nowadays have a bigger job. There's politics involved, but I always saw leadership as when I look at somebody, I want to be like them. And so I've had some role models in my life. And so when I'm walking the hallways, I want kids to say, I respect him and I'd like to be like him. That to me is my definition of leadership, I guess. I'm not smart enough to come up with these big, long philosophical definitions. I just try to work hard every day, put my work ethic out the door when I'm tired when I leave every day. But I also lead with my heart. My heart is for kids. I love what I do. I'm lucky enough to have a job that doesn't feel like terrible work, even in today's world. So I love what I do. And so when you love what you do, I think that it's easy to be considered, quote unquote, a leader. Because hugging kids and loving kids is easy for me. I had teachers that changed my life. I've had role models that changed my life. And so I try to emulate what they did. And you may or may not know, but my father was a principal. But he passed away when I was 5. So I'm sure somewhere psychologically it's embedded in here to be a principal.
Genetic, yeah.
Yeah. So, I think leadership is different to everybody, but to be a great leader, you have to be willing to do what you're asking others to do. Mm-hmm. And so that means work hard, show up, be good to kids, from dawn to dusk. And that's my definition. It's pretty simple, but I'm not smart enough to come up with a better one.
Well, I was going to say, you talked about hugging the kids a couple times and really letting them know you care. And I think that I've seen that people talk about it, like, hey, I care. Hey, this is important to me, but I think it's important that you show it. And that's what I've always admired with you, is that everybody that goes through that school, they hear you say it, but they see it in your actions every day. They know you care. And if you've got if you got to give a kid a kudos for a great job that they did,
Right.
they know that by the way you do that. And I also seen it when you've had to discipline a kid, right? You had to pull somebody aside, and it's not the heavy-handed thing that we thought with the big old paddle. I mean, you probably like to sometimes, but it's putting an arm around their shoulder and say, I've seen you do this personally. Say, hey, come on, you're better than this, and rise. And I think the kids really receive that pretty well. They know you care, and they
It's a
put you in the
level of
spot, and
respect.
you're trying to guide them. Yeah,
It's a challenge. I mean, a lot of teenagers don't get to know me early on, and they think I am the mean guy, the tough guy, because I do also walk the hallways with a firm expectation of behavior. So a young freshman, 14-year-old walks in. He's going to see me. He's going to say, that guy's not nice. That's just part of the job. I don't take it personally anymore. But I've always said if I had to write a book on principalship, chapter 2 would be discipline is an opportunity. I got in trouble in school, a lot of it. I lived it. I grew up without a father and had a great stepfather who really was one of my inspirations, turned my life around. And so you guys probably got in trouble. We all have. That we learn from.
Kevin.
Yeah, we learn from mistakes, especially males. We have to make mistakes. We don't listen to our parents. We don't listen to what leaders tell us to do. We make mistakes. We learn from them. And so I can really sit across the desk from me and be in that kid's seat when I'm dealing with a student.
So is there like looking back in your past, is there a certain mistake that you may have made that really caused an inflection point in your personal development?
Several. But I can remember quitting basketball as a junior, quitting sports, going down a terrible path, making mistakes. My mom was busy trying to raise us all. My stepfather was a great influence, but as a 16-year-old, you don't know what your great influences are until you reflect later. So I quit playing sports, terrible path. And then I played for a Michigan Hall of Fame basketball coach. And he turned me around and got me to come back out my senior year. Great role model. And he was a great winner of basketball games, but he was a great winner of life.
Was that local here?
He was at Utica Ford High School.
Okay, Utica.
Yep. And so he
Another
really
good school.
Yeah, another good school district, big.
Yep.
But he personalized it with me. He brought me back in after I quit on him, and that taught me a lot. So he turned me around and had a good teacher too. And then my brother Darren was my biggest role model. You know, when I lost my father, my older brother helped raise us. You know, he had to take me everywhere as a high school teenager and senior when his friends were having fun. He drove me all my sports, helped out as a father figure. And then he went in the military, became a lieutenant colonel. So, you know, seeing him live life, I wanted to emulate him. So, you know, I've had several good role models that got me out of those mistakes. If I had to go through all my mistakes today, this is going to be a long podcast. So I've just tried to learn from them. I talk to kids every day about making mistakes. And I'm like, I made a worse mistake than that. What are you worried about? And, you know, it's
athletics is a big one. You know, there's the camaraderie, there's teamwork, there's leadership. There's an awful lot of lessons in, athletics, right? But band.
all of it.
Right, exactly. The plays, there's a lot of teamwork involved. There's a lot of sharing of responsibility.
It's all family.
Right.
You know, I'm the athletic director of our clubs, is what I call it. We have a tremendous number of clubs at Brighton High School I'm really proud of. You know, we have things that are community service clubs. We have faith clubs. We have a mountain biking club that's an 8-time state champion. We have these incredible clubs, the musical, the band, the choir, all of these things bring kids together, bring parents into the building. You know, it shows off what we have. And we have talent A to Z there. And I wish that, you know, I love football. You know, I work for the Detroit Lions. It's in my blood, but I love all that stuff. I mean, those things save kids. They give kids a home. And you give kids a home in a school, they're going to walk in the next day and do the math. You know, a good school is not about math and science. I'll tell everybody that. A good school is about the culture, the experience, the memories. And I know that kids don't remember in a math lesson, but they might remember their math teacher. There's a difference there. You know, people say, what's the one lesson you could talk to people about in school? We say there's curriculum and there's connection. Curriculum is what you have to learn. Connection is the other stuff, the culture, the memories. And what's more important? I think the connection is. The best teachers do both. And I've got a lot of those that can do both. They teach well and they connect well. So those are the A's, and that's the only A and B in a school to me, curriculum and connection.
So Gavin, you talked a great definition on leadership, right? Because you can tell that's something that you live. But you're talking about connection, but you also threw in the word culture. So how, I mean, because culture, a lot of people use that word, culture defeats strategy every day, culture this. But what's your definition of culture? Because if we don't have a definition of culture, it's hard to talk about having a good culture.
It's the same question as some parents say, how do you know when you see a good classroom? And what would you see if you had to write it down? And I say, I can't write it down, but I can see it. So when you walk into a great classroom, you can see a great culture. There's connection there. There's caring, compassion. There's love of each other. And love's a big word. I don't think that they love their teacher, but they love what they're doing in that classroom. So if you take that and multiply it by 100, there's 100 classrooms of that. And then you multiply it by the clubs and the sports, and you make those connections in those areas. I think a culture has connection. If you're the boss and you're trying to lead an organization and you don't connect with your lowest level employee, you're missing the point. I lead with my heart that way, and my heart makes mistakes because there's passion in that heart. So I make a lot of mistakes when I lead with my heart, but I'd rather make a mistake leading with my heart, trying to connect with every single person in that building, than trying to lead by some definition, by checking off the boxes of, let's have a month. Let's do this month as a leader. There's no check boxes for leadership. So culture to me is hard to describe, but easy to see. And so if you're in the hallways picking up garbage and you know every teacher's name, and you know if a teacher's having a tough time at home with their family, and you write them a personal note, those people know you care. And then they're going to come to work caring about you and caring about what they do. So I just think work ethic, connection is where I would start with culture. If you lead and you're at the first one in and last one out, people are going to know you're working hard. And if you care about them while you're there, they're going to care about what they're doing for you.
It's fantastic.
Well, we talked about the students and leadership of the students, but I think leadership's also important. And you just mentioned it with staff, and I hear it. I talk to teachers and know a couple teachers, and like run around with one of them in particular. But they all say, "Oh man, Gavin Johnson." That's all we hear, and it's so well run, and I'll hear other the different buildings. We want our building to be like the high school and all that. That takes a lot to do because you got the young kids, right? They're young adults, we should say, but staff's a whole different component too. So it really tests your skills on both ends there, doesn't it?
It does, and they're very different skill sets. The kids are easy for me because I really love them. So it's easy. I don't get paid for the kid part. I mean, that's easy. Even the disciplinary stuff is easy to me because I love it. So the kid part, I try to emulate this. I probably overstate this, but I try to hand the kids the keys to the building to the kids. I say it a lot. I don't do it enough, but we let the kids try to help us run the building. If you give them a voice in their building, they're going to buy into that culture. So we do that a lot. Been lucky enough to know his children, and they're leaders. They help me run organizations. They help me run the school. So the kid part is easy. The staff part, dealing with the union, dealing with a contract, those are the reasons I get paid. They're harder. They're more difficult. But that's part of the job. That's why I get paid a lot of money to do both. The kid part comes really natural to me. Leading 100 employees or 150 employees is more difficult. But again, if I just lead with my heart, admit that I make mistakes, I make 50 mistakes a day because I make 500 decisions a day. The earlier in your career you can open up to making mistakes and opening up to that you're not perfect. I do it every day, and it's because I make mistakes, and that builds a connection with those staff members because then they're not afraid to make a mistake if they're trying something new for kids. So again, I am one of the least smart people in that building, but I think my heart's one of the bigger ones, and that's maybe that's how I can lead. Not everybody can, but it's how I lead.
But Les, you'll see this. I've been to 3 of these orientations now, and I love it because he gets up there on stage. He has a staff with him, a few people, and they got all these parents in there, and most of us first time through, kind of, what's going on? What's going to happen here? We're worried about our kid and getting there. And he just gets up. He goes, "Hey, we got this. We know what the heck we're doing here. Stay out of our way. Don't screw it up. We'll come ask you for help when we need help. Make sure you're there to help us pick your kids up." But and he goes right through everything and just lays out how the whole year is going to go.
That's awesome.
And it's pretty neat to see. And that there's a real sense of comfort. And I think again, it's just that confidence that you have. I mean, I think that's a big part of your leadership. It's you've done it so much, right? You know what you're doing. It's that confidence that comes out that's pretty neat.
But Kevin, you're giving me too much credit. To be a great leader, you have to have a great team. First of all, the community we live in is second to none. I mean, the support for our school system, our programs, our clubs, our schools is second to none. And I've been elsewhere. So we have a great community, and then we have great families and kids. I mean, the kids that walk in that door aren't normal kids. And I'm saying that as a complimentary note to those kids. You know, a good leader is also a conductor. You know, you have 150 players who are watching those 2,100 kids. I'm doing a little bit of this. I'm conducting. I mean, I'm not leading. I'm just making sure the doors are open. And when you have 100 good people teaching 2,100 good kids, good things can happen. I stay out of the way. When I have something good going on, I step back. You have at it. You know, I get a lot of that credit. I do. When things go bad, do I get the blame? Yeah, but that's part of being the leader and getting the bigger paycheck. So I do always say this to kids when I'm trying to teach young leaders in leadership class about being a leader. You know, a leader's the best thing they can do is pass the praise and take the blame. You know, then you create a lot of freedom below you to teach, to do things that are good, to create a better culture. So I take a lot of the blame. I think it's a leader's job, but there's a lot of good stuff going on there. I mean, I don't have any knowledge of calculus, and we have excellent math kids. I got good math teachers. I conduct them. I let them go. I open up their doors for them. They have the curriculum and materials, and they do the job. So I get a lot of credit when things are going well. But really, it's a community school, has great kids, great parents, great teachers. And I do get too much credit, Kevin.
Well, I want to talk something about the leadership class, because you mentioned that you're giving the kids the keys to the castle, and you talked about the leadership class. A lot of people don't know about this, and I think this is one of the coolest things we do at the high school. And can you just expand on that and tell us what that is?
Sure. Like, you know, we have grade level class council. So 9th grade class council, 10th grade, 11th grade. Then we have an executive board that helps lead all of those groups. Then we have a national society board that leads in the NHS. So we have a lot of good leadership groups. You don't know as much about, you know about the leadership class because of your
when
amazing daughter.
When he said NHS, he said, I don't know anything about that, right? He's talking about the Van Candel gene, right?
Hey, but you could take it a couple of different ways.
Well, I wasn't an NHS member either. I tell kids every day, I had a 2.9, and now I run the joint. All right. So I've learned.
So you're saying there's a chance?
There's a chance for every kid out there. So we have a leadership class that is taught by a teacher today. Mr. Grabowski was taught in the past by Mrs. Park. And that's not something I created. That was there before me. And so we select about 30 leaders out of the senior class every year, and it's application driven. And these kids help run the school. They run the assembly. When people say, God, you have a great homecoming assembly, they give me the credit. But those kids do it all. They run Pink Week. I mean, Pink Week was something we came up with together, but Pink Week's raised over $250,000 for our local cancer research just from kids' leadership and fundraising. And also, those things build culture. When you run a Pink Week in a high school setting and kids, every kid, a 9th grader, is wearing a pink shirt on a Friday and donating money for cancer research, that builds a citizen. And so I think that's culture. So leadership in a building from kids builds your culture. When the kids see other kids taking the lead in your building, they want to be those kids. They want to help lead their school. They want to be involved. And so that's another thing we do for culture. So I pretty much empower those students to help me lead the building, be good parts of their building, come up with ideas that make more fun. Our kids that walk in today don't know that, you know, junior versus senior volleyball didn't exist, that Powder Puff didn't exist, Pink Week didn't exist. They just think they're parts of this Brighton High School. Well, they didn't exist 15 years ago. These came out of student ideas and how to have fun in their school. And I just checked the box and allowed them to do it. But these kids help me do that stuff. Putting a student on the school board, you know, having a student voice on the school board with the adults running the district. Those are powerful things in a kid's eyes. And so letting kids be a part of their building is how I think you can also make a great high school. And so I've just opened up the doors to that.
Well, I know a young man that was in your leadership class a few years back, went to college, got out, and was looking for a job, and immediately connected with one of the CEOs you'd brought in from another company, from a company here, local guy, and he got to participate in a leadership class and talk to your kids. So the mentoring that you provided for these young adults directly led to this guy getting a job at a Fortune 500 company.
It's great.
Just because they got connected on that. So
well, right now when you drive down the streets, I can't tell you who this is because this is not a political show, but my first year of a leadership class, one of my leaders from that class is now running for city council. I mean, that makes you feel good. Right. I had 0.001% to do with that, but seeing that young man grow from a high school leader where you're thinking about what kind of car am I going to drive and who am I going to ask to homecoming, where he's going to run for Brighton City Council 10 years later, tells me a lot. It tells me we have great kids. You give them the right kind of school to help develop their habits, and then they're going to go on and become leaders in our country.
So, Gavin, along that thread, have you had a past student come back to you personally and speak with you?
All the time.
All the time. I think that's
It's the power of the job. I mean,
right.
I always say,
Is
I'm
there
not
one
great.
that stands out?
I have friends who make a lot more money than I do, and I always say, I don't make money, but I make a difference. I hope that's true. I have the pictures all on my wall. I mean, I can look at all those kids and remember a story from each one of them.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I cry a lot. It's okay to cry. I cry with these kids because I cried with them when they didn't get in that school they wanted to go to, when they didn't have a homecoming date, or they didn't get that election. Mm-hmm. That's real to high school kids. You cry with them, you hug them. They come back. They remember that, because I remember those things, and so did you guys. So I always ask, like, do you remember who won the Super Bowl 5 years ago? Do you remember who Miss America was last year? And usually, no, I can't. Can you remember one teacher's name 40 years ago that made a difference? You can snap those off. And so we have an opportunity as leaders, educators, to make a real difference in our world. And I go to school every day knowing that, and I hope every one of my teachers does that. And those teachers will say that a graduation invite means more to them than a paycheck. The good teachers, because that means they know connection is more important than curriculum.
Fantastic.
Good stuff, man.
That's a great story.
Yeah.
We're lucky, though. It's powerful, but we're lucky.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, because you got all these outside influences. You know, you got parents, you got guys like us that are coming in and knocking on your door, saying, "Hey," you know. But you handle it all, and I love the leadership. And we talk about education, right? And we think, well, it's just kids, but all these are the same lessons that just easily apply right over to our business, right? The same thing whether it's employees and customers, kids and staff, right?
Right.
It's the American way to complain about your job. So your employees are out there complaining about you guys right now.
Are they, Les?
I guaranteed.
So the trick is to listen to them. So, but I need to say, there's probably 25% of your listeners are going to say, that guy's full of hogwash because I know that guy and he didn't treat me like that. So it is hard to reach every person. I'm not blind to that, but it doesn't make me stop trying. There's kids in that school right now that are cursing me out. It's okay. It's part of the job, part of being a leader. You cannot make everybody happy if you're a leader.
Mm-hmm.
You know, if you're not pushing, you're not being a great leader either. Pushing to be better. And when people get pushed, sometimes they push back. So it is a difficult job. You're not going to make everybody happy if you're a good leader. I do believe that. So there are people out there who will say, this guy's just blowing smoke at you. You know, he didn't give my kid any heart. It's unfortunate. It's true, but I do make mistakes. I'm not perfect, and every time a parent walks in or a student walks in. But I have a lot of those interactions, so I do make mistakes. And just, I don't quit trying.
Goes with the road, right?
Yeah, I don't quit trying. That's all I do.
Good.
There's been a lot of challenges in education, right? And it's just not just the last 2 years. These challenges have been there for, you know, the 12 years you've been at the high school. What are some of the big challenges we're facing as educating our kids and in your role as an educator? And what are some of the opportunities? Because whenever there's a challenge, there's an opportunity, right?
Yeah, so COVID, of course, is the biggest challenge we're all facing. I've been talking with everybody about this, county level principals, everybody I know. You know, if you don't think about this year's current juniors went home early. So our current juniors haven't had a normal year at the high school. So our freshmen, we have 2 freshman classes, if you think about it. Last year's freshman class came to school, didn't come in on Wednesdays, wore a mask. We held them down. It was quiet in the schools. There were no cultural events last year, no assemblies. So now they're sophomores, and they haven't had a normal year. Well, now we have more of a normal year with a lot of freedom. Mm-hmm. So I'm working with 2 freshman classes this year that have never had a normal high school experience. And they've also, more importantly, lost a lot of spots in curriculum. You know, you don't get sent home in March and not finish the last quarter of the year without losing some curriculum.
Sure.
And then last year, some kids learned virtually. Some kids, none of them came to school on Wednesdays. You know, then we went home for 5 weeks after Thanksgiving. So these kids have all missed huge gaps of curriculum. And so we're just learning those spots right now, 6-7 weeks into school. So the cultural thing of it, they haven't had a normal school year. They don't know what it's like in a normal school right now, half my school. And then the curriculum part, we're finding out algebra, you know, our Algebra 2 kids, they missed gaps in Algebra 1 or geometry. We couldn't do it all when they're virtual. So the big challenge is, I think we have 2 years of students, 2+ years of students that really haven't had normalcy in their education. And all schools are facing that challenge. So the things that have come out of COVID that are positives, we learn how to do things virtually. I mean, the virtual world is occurring. It's going to occur more and more in the future. So our kids have learned some of those skills, and my teachers had to learn some skills. I'm still not very good virtually. I'm an old man. I am. Google Sheets are not what I'm good at. I'm good at hugging a kid. So I like to think I am. I feel like, we've learned a lot, but man, the challenges facing kids nowadays. And then these kids were at home on social media nonstop.
Right.
They were told not to be around friends. They didn't socially develop. So we have a lot of social and emotional health concerns, anxiety about school, walking back into buildings. That's for adults too, because we've got families. We've got parents who might be worried about, or kids at home that were quarantined, or maybe someone had COVID. So the challenges of the past few years have been immense. And I can't understate them. It's been the hardest 2 years of my life professionally. And so we're trying to find the way out. I've been saying, man, I wish we had summer break today and we could start fresh and healthy again, but we can't. So we're doing our best every day. We just finished homecoming week. It was pretty normal, some changes, but the kids have suffered. I believe that, and they need to be supported academically and socially. And those are tough things to do while you're attending school. So we have a huge bureaucracy. We have a school board. We have 2,100 kids. It's hard to change those big ships' directions.
Sure.
And so we've had to jump ship and change midstream and turn around. And so it's been a challenge for educators. Teachers are working twice as hard with less results. My teachers have accommodated and helped, and they are working hard today. And we feel like we're not doing as well. So there's a little bit of a angst with that for us, But all schools are facing it. We did well in Brighton to bring our kids to school 4 days a week last year. Proud of our school district for doing as well as we could. Some schools were virtual all last year. So I'm proud of our community and getting our kids into school. But it's going to be a continual struggle for these groups of kids.
Yeah. Wow. What a test of resiliency.
For sure. For the kids, yeah.
Yep.
And the adults. Like I don't want to understate that either. The teachers, man, they are working hard. And when you work and you pound the pavement that hard and you don't find the same results, it's frustrating because those teachers want to help. And when I say those teachers, I mean teachers across the state and the nation, everybody.
Right.
Well, I mean, it's the hand we're dealt, right? And you got to play with it. And it happens with business. We have business owners out there that are trying to make some of these same decisions you are. Do you bring employees in? Do you have customers? Things like that. But I think it's neat because it does test your leadership, right? You got to communicate, and we've seen that with you there at the high school with the students, and the whole district too. And I don't want to single out just the high school.
Please don't.
Yeah, no.
I'm gonna take some crap. I'm sure.
No, because I got a wife at another school. I want her to have a job tomorrow too.
Yeah.
But no, all the schools, it's the communication, right? It's the caring. But I think what the neat thing about this, if there is a neat thing, if you will, it's tested our juices, right? We got to be creative. And I think the really good ones are ones that's, like you've said, you make a ton of mistakes. You're not afraid to try, right? Yeah. And you're not afraid to say, hey, we're going down this road, and then raise your hand and say, wrong road, let's turn around and go back, right?
I think that is leadership too, admitting you're wrong. Let's fix it then. Don't come to me with problems, come with solutions. I love solutions from people who are smarter than me because they've got better ones. And kids sometimes have those solutions. And that's what the nice thing about having a kid walk in your door with a good solution is. I mean, when you let a kid make a call and it makes your school better, man, oh man, I'm a great leader, aren't I?
Well, it's being creative. I mean, you've done some stuff with the graduations, and I don't want to get hung up on COVID stuff, but the graduations you've had to do, and the creativity on that, and a drive-through one year that, kept me from getting through downtown because we had all these cars, but that aggravation was cool to see because we were trying something different. We were trying, and I think that's what's important. And we did a prom last year. Just talk about that. That was kind of cool. Weather didn't cooperate, but it was kind of cool.
I was so thrilled about that event. I mean, no schools were having proms. Like, we're going to have one. And so we went to downtown and worked with some great downtown folks. That's what this community is cool. A lot of restaurants and businesses opened up their doors to us and allowed us to come in. So we had a prom downtown. We locked down the street. The city council jumped on board. We want to work with the schools. Not all communities have that.
Right.
I mean, we have it. We are. And so we locked down downtown. Our kids dressed up. They had a prom downtown and out of doors. I thought it was amazing. The weather wasn't, but other schools didn't have those things. And I saw our kids dressed up having a prom last year during COVID safely with the community's help. I don't think teenagers know it when they're walking downtown, but when they remember that, they'll remember they're part of a great community. So, the return on a teenager's investment isn't always today.
Right.
It's going to be 5 or 10 years when they're in that restaurant and thinking, this is where I ate on my prom night when we had a prom during COVID. So those little things sometimes don't come home to roost early, but they do always do later.
There's a lot of creativity there.
Yeah, it was great. The businesses jumped in, restaurants
Right.
opened their doors. I cried that night, and I'll cry again. You know, it was. And then graduation last year, we had a graduation on our football field, out of doors, with all the kids there. We made it work. You know, there were some limits in place, but man, that was the best graduation I've ever had, and it wasn't the best one, if you know what I mean.
Mm-hmm.
It was just the best one emotionally for me to see those kids graduate last year. I had a senior tell me last year that their whole year was fixed by the last week of school. I mean, I remember that comment forever.
Sure.
You know, because
Wow.
they got some stuff and they had a graduation.
Well, I've always said if I was you, I'd never buy a lottery ticket with your luck, but that'd be wasted money. But you've also put these plans together. But I've been impressed that you've been able to adapt because things have changed. You know, things change, and it's out of your control, and you guys have to make decisions for whatever reason, whether you think it's a better decision now or somebody else says no. But you always have a contingency plan, and I love it, man. It's just like there's always something else you switch to, and nobody knows it.
It's part of the job, you know.
Gavin, is there really always a plan B, or is it just something you're telling?
There's always a plan we talk about. There is with a big event like that. I can't have a graduation and not have a plan B or C. You know.
Perfect.
So 2 years ago when we had graduation, we were going to do 100 kids at a time. And then certain people started reading the rules differently. And so then we had to do 33 kids at a time. So but we made those changes a week at a time, and some parents got frustrated and kids got frustrated. But in the end, those parents, they got their graduation and they got to watch it close up and personal. And it was a success. So it doesn't always work out like that. It's just that education and the connection between schools and community is really personal and emotional. So when you make something work, there's a positive, emotional, personal connection about that. So Pink Week's not about the money. It's great to give money to, you know, our cancer research at St. Joe's, but it's about the connection, the personal connection to your school. That's what culture, I think, is personal connection to whatever you're doing. And if you're making widgets, try to make it personal. You know, make a connection in that business, whatever your organization is, and make it personal, and you'll get better results.
Expand on that Pink Week, because I've seen it, and it's cool. And it's more than just passing a bucket around, asking kids to throw lunch money in there to raise money for a cause. Just give us some highlights of, you know, what you guys do. I think it's cool.
So I'll admit this, like some of the best ideas are stolen ideas. And so Pink Week was something I saw it was happening across the state in another community. I saw all the downtown painted pink, and I'm thinking, if this town can't do it, nobody can. So, I mean, Brighton. And so I brought it to leadership class, and we jumped on it. We just kind of drew it up from scratch. I stole the powder puff game from my daughter's school in Clarkston.
Mm-hmm.
So junior girls playing senior girls on a football field. And the first year was like 20 girls versus 40. I mean, 2 years ago, we had 150 kids. This year, we had like 150 seniors, girls. So they love that night. It may be my favorite night of the year. You know, seeing our girls on our football field in jerseys, taking pictures after the game, making emotional connections to their school. So the powder puff game is Monday night. We have a cool raffle all week where teachers raffle off cool stuff, and we raise a lot of money, and we give it all to our St. Joseph's Cancer Center down the road. And so the money stays local, and it serves local people. And every year we have people in Brighton High School or in the district that are undergoing cancer. And so it is personal. We've had a lot of my personal friends and employees undergoing breast cancer, different kinds of cancer. So it's happening. We all know it's happening. So you bring that into the school, you educate kids about being good members of their society, but while they're having fun. We're raising money and having fun together, and that's what a good community can do. So I'm selfish about it. I like raising the money, keeping it local, but I'm really super selfish about the emotional connection to being a good citizen. And I think that's my job as the leader of that school, to try and create a culture where kids learn how to become adults. And again, it's not math or science. It's the game of life. They come in as middle schoolers, and think about an 8th grade middle school boy, you know, still picking his nose, right? Leaving, applying for the academy or University of Michigan, or going to get a great job or getting a great trade. I mean, they become adults in that building. And so it's our opportunity to help create better adults, help give them better opportunities to become better citizens down the road.
Okay. Kev, probably go on all day.
Oh, I mean, if you see what these guys do over there, it is, we could go all day with this. So Anything else you want to add? Anything we didn't touch on that you need to get in there? You need to give a shout out to Dr. Outlaw. Tell him that thank you. He's doing a great job.
He is working so hard. I mean, I followed a great man, Ken Hammond, if you know Ken. I called him Mr. Brighton.
Right.
He knows everybody. So I came into some big shoes, and so I was a little nervous. So Dr. Outlaw stepped in some big shoes, Dr. Gray. And Dr. Gray, great man, great mentor for me.
Probably another guy we should have here when we talk about leadership, right?
Yeah, he was a great role model mentor. He brought me from Owasso when he came from Owasso, and so we were connected at the hip. So, but Dr. Outlaw stepped in during COVID when we were already in the throes of it, coming into a district that was still figuring things out. I feel really bad for him at times because that's hard to do. You know, following a strong leader in COVID in a great district that has high expectations. You know, I just can't tell you the challenges that guy's faced. And he's a, most importantly about Dr. Outlaw, great man, great dad, great husband. When you have those things in place, you know, that's going to leak into his leadership abilities in the district. And so, and Greg was the same way, Dr. Greg.
Oh, we would have had Greg here, but he doesn't wake up this early, and then he's on the golf course or fishing afterwards.
No,
so
he's got
no
a real
shot, right?
He's got a real job now. He goes to work a couple of days a week, and that's about it.
So we got it. Yep. Always ask a tip for somebody. Normally we do a bourbon, but as principal, we didn't think it was right to talk about bourbon on the show. But best mountain biking trail around here. Well, this guy knows a little bit about tackling the hills.
There's a lot of good ones. So I mean, that's why our team is so strong. I mean, they're all great. DTE, Island Lake, you know, Brighton Rec. The best ones are on the UP though. So you know, I'm a UPer, right?
Yeah. So give us one up there. Somebody.
So Marquette has a great trail system, and then Copper Harbor has like legendary trail systems as well. Copper Harbor's a lot longer drive, but if you really want some amazing mountain biking, Marquette is probably a 7-hour drive. You can't ride all those trails in a long weekend. There's beginners, there's intermediate, there's challenging where you're literally climbing mountains. So we are really lucky in the state though. There's great intermediate trails between here and there. Traverse City has a great trail system, great races there. So we're lucky in the state. If you think about it, if you said there's another state that's surrounded by water, that has great cities, great rivers, great towns, great rural areas, great hunting, great fishing, great mountains. I mean, we're pretty lucky in this state. I love Michigan. I'll never leave.
Kevin, sounds like we got to have a team meeting.
Yeah, it sounds that way, doesn't it? We'll be up there with him.
Right.
He can take us for leadership, at least, right down the trails, right?
That's right.
So, no, the 5 people listening to this podcast, if you haven't had a chance to go through Brighton High School, we'll give out Gavin Johnson's personal phone cell number on the credits here at the end of this thing. Call him, and he'll be happy to take you through there. But I would encourage any parent or any business owner that wants to see a bunch of young people doing well, want to see great leadership, want to see a staff that's 100% aligned with from top to bottom, doing great things, get down to Brighton High School and walk through that thing.
Right.
Thanks for blowing me up here, guys. I appreciate it. All right.
No, we appreciate it. That's a great conversation.
Thank you, guys. Anytime.
Yeah.
All right.
You got it.
Got